Hello, Algebra Prep students. We are on to topic 5 in Unit 4, graphing from slope-intercept form. Hopefully this is something that once we start doing it, you kind of remember seeing it before. But slope-intercept form, if to start with, is this. It is y whoa, that's not an equal sign. Y equals mx plus b. Right? So slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b, where the m is the slope of the line, if you remember. That's what we said that slope stood for. And then the b here, this is the part that's a little bit new for today, is the y coordinate of the y-intercept. So it's the y-coordinate of the y-intercept. We write the y-intercept would be 0, comma, b, where the x is 0 and the y is b. So the y-coordinate of the y-intercept is the b. All right, and this is because, and we'll show one example of this when we work down below, but that if the x is 0, right, because the y-intercept, x's are always 0 on the y-axis, right? If I sketched a little, let me sketch a little axis here just to emphasize. So here's an xy axis, right? And this is x, and this is y, and let's go see 1, 2, 3. Let's put a dot here at 2 on the y. That's a y-intercept. This point is over 0 up to 0, comma 2. So every single point on the y-axis has an x value of 0. And so if we were going to algebraically solve it, if we plugged in for 0 and solved for y, that would leave us with the b. So this is the key information from slope-intercept form. This is the slope-intercept form of an equation, y equals mx plus b. So let's take a look at what this means. So we're going to start by just identifying the key information from the problem. So over here on 1, I'm going to make my screen a little bit bigger so that way we can easily see, right? So here, first thing we're going to do is identify our slope, right? So our m equals, remember this is y equals mx plus b. So the m is 2. And sometimes when we're thinking slope, and we're going to start graphing here in a minute, it can be helpful to think of it as a fraction, because remember, slope is rise over run. So we can make it a fraction by making it 2 over 1, because that might help us graph it a little bit better. And then we're going to identify the b, right? The b is 1, right? So b is that plus 1 there at the end. If we were going to write the b as a y-intercept, then we should write it as 0, comma 1. And on your homework, we're going to be asking you to identify the slope, identify the b, and then write it as a point. So we're going to have you do all 3 of these things here. So make sure you can do all 3. Maybe I should do it this way, right? And I just want to do a quick algebraic demonstration of about the y-intercept, right? So here, if I do y equals, remember when we were learning how to plug in? If I plugged in 0 for x here, and then solved for y, you would have y equals 2 times 0, whoa, 2 times 0, 0, plus 1, or y equals 1, which is the b. We don't do this math. This is not something, whoops, I'm not doing very well today. This is not something we're going to do on a regular basis, right? Because we know if it's set up into y equals mx plus b, then we know that b is the y-intercept. So we don't have to do this math down here. But I just wanted to make sure we showed it to you. This is a super important thing that we're going to be using a lot in Algebra 1. We're going to be finding x and y intercepts, not always for easy problems like this. Like right now in algebra, we're working on x and y intercepts for quadratics. And so understanding that for every single y-intercept in this entire universe, x is 0, will go a long way to helping you find those y-intercepts. All right, let's do another one. So Let's see, again, remember it's y equals mx plus b. It can be helpful to write it a few times, right? So the m is the slope. If there's not a number in front of that x, remember that number is 1. So the slope here is 1 or 1 over 1, right? That's my slope. The y-intercept is b. b equals 2 for this problem, right? It's the 0, 2 here at the end. So that means my y-intercept is 0, comma 2. Okay, getting the hang of it. All right, let's do 2 more. Here we go. So again, y equals mx plus b. So looking for my m first. M is the number here in front. The number here in front is just a negative sign. If it's just a negative sign, that means my slope is -1. And we can write that as -1 over 1, or we can write that as 1 over -1, right? The negative can be on the top or the bottom, your choice. When we go to start graphing here in a minute, it's going to be your choice. This b, the y-intercept, there's nothing there. There's no plus anything. So that means my b is 0. This line goes through the origin 0, 0. So if there is no b, there is no number there at the end, that b is 0. All right, one more. Make sure we got this part before we start actually graphing. So y equals mx plus b. So my m, again, is that in front of the x right here. So m is 1/2. My b is what's over here. Make sure I'm circling, if you notice, the negative sign with that. So my b is -3. You have to take that negative. That -3 becomes -3b. So my y-intercept is 0, comma, -3. All right, so here we go. So that was the first 4 problems done. So now we're going to graph. So I have down here steps to graph from slope-intercept form. Right, so this is what we need to do in order to graph. So here are the steps. There's just 2 of them. Step 1, and you can do them in this order. So step 1, I'm going to make this a little bit bigger so I can write on here. We're going to find and plot the y-intercept. So we start by finding and plotting the y-intercept, 0, comma, b. Right, 0, comma, b. So when we have a problem, first thing we do is find the y-intercept. So here, move up here a little bit, right? So I have a problem down here, number 5. So let's go ahead and find that y-intercept first. So the y-intercept is the b. So I'm going to go b equals, in this problem here, it's -4. So that means we're going to plot the point 0, comma, -4. So over 0, down 4, here's my plot point on the graph. If you weren't able to print, you're not able to print, you can just sketch a graph. Just do a quick little sketch. You don't have to draw all the grid lines, but make sure you put all of the numbers on your graph if you have to sketch it. Okay. All right. So first thing we do is find and plot the y-intercept. Done. Check, check. Now let's do second part. Second part means that we need to now find additional points on the line. So we're going to, number 2, we're going to state the slope as rise over run, right? And use it to find 2 more points on the line, and then in parentheses, starting at the y-intercept. So step 2 is to state the slope, right, as rise over run. and use it to find 2 more points on the line, starting at the y-intercept. Right, so remember, if you need to pause, feel free to pause as you're going to write down. So slope, so m equals, in this case, my slope here is this, the green here, so it's 1 over 2. Right, remember this is rise over run. It technically could also be -1 over -2, right? -1 over -2. Last week we simplified that to 1/2. So they could both be negative as well. Sometimes that might be helpful when we're trying to graph. Sometimes it's not. So starting at our -4, we're going to go rise of 1, then we're going to run 2, and then this is my second point on the graph. So starting at this, at the -4, we went up 1 to -3, and then we went to the right 2. And then from this new point, we're going to go up 1 and to the right 2. And if you want to draw in that line as you're going, that is fine. You need to draw at least 3 points. You had your original y-intercept and 2 additional points. You can draw more if you want to help you. We also did -1 over -2. I just want to show you, right? We could go down 1 and to the left 2. Remember, negatives mean down. Remember, this is down, and then this is to the left, where this one would be up, and this is to the right. Positives are up and to the right. Negatives are down and to the left. So we could have gone that direction as well. Once we have our points, sketch a line. We don't have rulers here, so sketch as best as we can. All right, there we go. This is the line of the graph that goes through the function y equals 1/2 x minus 3. Okay? All right, we're going to do a few more of these. Make sure we got it. So since I have the printed copy here, I'm going to flip the page. Right, if you need to pause and get yourself set up so you're better prepared for the problems, make sure you're pausing as we go. All right, so here's number 2. Y equals -1/4 x plus 2. So first thing we do is find the y-intercept, right? The y-intercept is the b. So b equals 2. The point we're going to plot is 0, 2. So I'm going to go over 0, up 2 on my graph. That's step 1. There's my point. Step 2 is define the slope. So this slope is -1/4. So my slope is either -1 over 4 or 1 over -4. Your choice which one you want to use. Or we might need to do them both. Sometimes you need to do them both. So let's look. So if we use the first one, that means this is a rise over 1. So we're going to go down 1 and to the right 4. Now we actually have to do it both ways for this graph to fit on, right? Because if I went down 1 and to the right 4, I'm off my graph. Because down 1 would be off, I need to go over to 8. 8 would be somewhere over here, right? That's not quite good enough. So let's go up 1 and to the left 4. Right, there's my second point. Up 1 and to the left 4. So now that I have 3 points, I can connect the points with a straight line. Your line should be fairly straight. If you have a ruler, use it. That would be awesome. I mean, if you've sketched your own thing, it might be hard to get it perfectly straight, but it should be mostly straight because these are straight lines. If you start graphing and it looks like a zigzag, then something's going kind of haywire with our graphing. We should look at that again. Okay. All right. Try a couple more. So first, we have y equals 2x minus 3. So starting with our b, remember our b is this -3. So b is -3. That means we're going to plot the point 0, -3. So that point is down here on the y-axis. And then we're going to find our slope. Our slope for this problem is 2. So I'm going to write it as 2 over 1. Because we want to write it as rise over run. So we'll make that whole number into a fraction. And remember, it could be 2 over 1, or it could be -2 over -1. And notes, it can be helpful to write this out just to remind yourself that it is a +2 over +1 or -2 over -1. Those both will get there. So starting at -3, we're going to go rise of 2, run of 1. There's a dot. Rise of 2, run of 1. There's a second dot on the line. Right, we could have went down 2 into the left 1 to get a dot as well. Your choice. Once we have at least 3 or 4 dots, then let's go ahead and connect the lines. Ooh, Not quite so straight. Let's go. I'm going to try that again. There we go. I can't use a ruler on this, and I'm not sure. I'm sure there's probably a straight line on here somewhere, and I can't find it on the tools yet. So there we go. That's good enough. All right, so there we are. We've graphed y equals 2x minus 3. We knew it was a positively sloped line. All positively sloped lines are going to go in this direction, right? Up, going up from left to right. All right, let's go number 8. Number 8, starting with the b, we've got to find the y-intercept first. So this y-intercept is 2, so we're going to plot the point 0, 2. So we're going to start here at 0, 2. My slope for this one, just remember, if that's just an x, that means it's a 1, so it's a 1 over 1, or it's negative 1 over negative 1. So now we're going to plot it. So we're going to start at that 2, and we're going to go rise 1 to the right 1. Rise 1 to the, let's do that again. Rise 1 to the right 1. Rise 1 to the right 1. Right, or we could have went down 1 to the left 1 if we wanted to go in the negative direction. So there we go. I got 4 points. I'm going to draw my line. There we are. There's our line. Find your b, plot your y-intercept, use your rise over 1 to find your other points. This is the easiest way to graph lines linear. There's other ways that we're going to learn in Algebra 1 they're not necessarily harder, but that you have to know some other stuff. So we can graph from point slope form, which is a great easy way to graph, but you got to remember how the point slope equation works. The nice thing about this one is it's pretty straightforward. So that's why we want to try to get this one mastered. If we get this one mastered, then in Algebra 1 you can focus on mastering the other types of lines. All right, last problem. All right, starting with the b. This b is nothing over here, so my b equals 0. So this point line is going to go through the origin, 0, 0. If there is no b, then it's the y-intercept's an origin. And then we have our slope. So our slope is m equals negative 2 over 1, right? Because this is my slope. Or you could do 2 over negative 1, whichever way you prefer. Negative has to be on top or on bottom because it's negative. It's a negatively sloped line, so we know this line is going to go in this direction, right? It's going to be going downward sloping from left to right. So from here, my point, if I would use negative 2 over 1, I would go down negative 2 to the right 1. Or if I wanted to go up positive 2 and to the left 1, we could do that as well, right? We knew, but super helpful to remember that all negatively sloped lines look like this. So when you go to graph, if you're not graphing it that direction, then you got to flip it around. This is the easiest thing I think to mess up, is the which way is negative, which way is positive, right? So if you're going up, it's positive. If you're going down, it's negative. If you're going to the right, it's positive, right? Up is positive, down is negative. To the right is positive, to the left is negative. So it could be helpful to kind of sketch that out. You could even sketch it this way and go up is positive, down is negative. To the right is positive, to the left is negative, right? Even sketch that a couple times before you start graphing to kind of help you remember. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and connect those 3 points. There we are. So now we have graphed some lines from y equals mx plus b. So make sure on your homework, it's going to ask you to identify the b. It's going to ask you to identify the slope. It's going to ask you to identify the y-intercept. The y-intercept is the point written as an ordered pair with parentheses around it, right? That's how you write a point. Make sure you put parentheses around that point. If you don't put parentheses around it, you haven't written a point. That's parentheses tell me it's a point. So make sure that you are filling all that in. Because the beginning of the homework, you're just going to identify the stuff, and then you're going to actually do some graphing. All right, that's the only notes we have for this week. We're going to do some test corrections starting on Wednesday. So hopefully you can get this stuff mastered and get your homework done and take your quiz on this on Friday. See you guys in class on Wednesday.